everybody to another edition of the Major Music Lounge podcast. And joined by my guest, Burnt Bakarak, joining us from Burnt Up Records. What's good, my brother?
What's up, man?
Oh
Doing
man,
great.
man, just chilling on it, man, and got a chance to, check out some of the links you had sent. We're gonna get into some of the albums, but getting the
Cool.
show ramped up, man. I actually took 2 weeks off and like recently um I shot a music video. I don't know if you saw that, but just been doing that, and I'm actually also doing this beat challenge right now, which got to pretty much do a beat video every day. So I kind of been
hmm
just busy with that, but getting back to doing the show in the midst of all of that, and I'm also working on another album. So you know how it is,
hmm
man. It never stops. What's been good
hmm
with you?
Everything been good, man. Just staying busy. Staying busy.
Word, word, man. Word. That's the best way to be, man. Staying busy. That way you
hmm
don't get into anything you don't need to get into. So yeah, I definitely feel you on that.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Burn Up Records. Where you originally from?
We're from the kind of in between the Dayton and Cincinnati area, Ohio area,
Okay,
and
well,
I come from an engineering background originally. That's what I'm trained in, and just more started messing with MPCs back in the early 2000s, and
okay.
just love it and follow that through and still love it today. Still love learning, trying new things.
Yeah, so you say MPC, and
Mhm,
I'm kind of like I guess you could say a long time MPC user myself. I
mhm.
currently use the MPC One in a lot of my production. I go between that, to be honest, and Machine. But I started out originally on the MPC 2000 XL. That was way back like in '07, '08-ish. And
Mhm, mhm.
I say that to ask you originally, which was the first MPC did you start with?
I had a 1000 I got back in 2003, I believe. Yeah,
Okay.
I originally used the MPC 2000 like my buddies, but I didn't mess with it that much. I didn't learn anything really. I just screwed around. You know how it is when you first start.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I bought a 1000 and just went at it, man. Just sat on my couch with the 1000 for years, a decade plus probably, and just went at it.
Man. Yeah, man. I just like to ask that question because I remember like when I first got into, well, I was already making beats at that time, but what got me wanting to get into the MPC, I just used to hear a lot of other producers talk about it. And one day, I met this cat out here. I live in Dallas, and
Mhm.
he actually told me he was selling his MPC, so I bought it off of him. And I liked the workflow in the 2000, and that was back when they had those zip disks. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
remember
Mhm.
myself getting on online on Amazon, ordering me that zip disk drive to be able to use with the computer because I remember that was back when you could download some of those samples straight to the disk.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
needed that
Mhm.
drive. But yeah, I remember saving all my money just to buy that 2000 XL, and that led me over to getting to the MPC One. What model are you currently? Are you still using that 1000, or do you use something else now?
I never used a 1000. I went from a 1000 to a 62 and then to an X. And then my X kind of crapped out the sound card on it. And I think it still works, but I just went switched to a live. I had a live sitting around. So
Okay,
I use that
well,
now. I love the
yeah,
one though. My roommate's got a one in the other room. And if I had to pick one of the new NPCs, I'd say the one would probably be, especially if I was budget oriented.
yeah, yeah. I like that
Very
live
powerful.
too, man. Like I
Mhm.
I remember when they announced the MPC One, and because you're saying that, I remember I got it because it was around that 749, I think 799 price point. And originally around that time, I was actually kind of thinking about getting back into the MPC workflow altogether. I was actually about to possibly buy another 2000 XL or maybe even a 1000 like you had. But I
Mhm.
decided to go ahead and get the one. And just be prepared though if you got the MP or if listeners out there, just be prepared if you're getting into like the MPC One. That it does have like 4 gigs of onboard or internal storage. So you may need to purchase additional storage separately, whether that's a flash drive or a hard drive. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
man. So you mentioned, in that you mentioned that you used the 1000 back around like what, '03. How long have you
Yep.
been
Yep.
producing overall?
Since then, really, like I said, I used a 2000 before that, but it wasn't serious. It was when I was in engineering school, just some homies had it and just got down with them, watching what they did, programming drums. Nothing really came near that. But, seriously, since '03, '04, probably more '04.
Okay. Yeah, we
Mhm.
kind of started around the same time. That was the stage that you were talking about where you just kind of dabbled in it. That was the stage I was in around '04, '05. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I met some other people that were out here in Dallas, I really started kind of getting more into wanting to create music and production and beat making. So,
Mhm.
yeah, man, we kind of started around the same time. Are you an artist too?
Like a rapper.
Yeah, rapper.
No, it actually started that was what put me into hip hop, but I don't ever really write anymore. Mm-mm.
Okay, word, word. Yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
just had to ask. Um,
Mhm.
I got a chance to listen, and I got them pulled up here. Um,
Mhm.
Brother Bork, Biblical Distortions, and
Mhm.
then the Crosstown Beef project. I listened to some tracks on both of those before we did the show.
Mhm.
First and foremost, that Biblical Distortions. It kind of sounds like you pretty much did you have the concept to just sample like gospel music, or what was
Yep.
the concept behind that album?
It started as like a silly idea to play on Kirk Franklin's name and just started getting heard some gospel music and was like, I could chop that. Not really being familiar. I mean, you definitely hear it around, but I don't necessarily come from like a religious background, and uh, it just hit me like, man, I could sample this, and it really getting into it changed me. It was weird to where I kind of started understanding spirituality and listening to them preachers that I sampled on there, and it definitely gave me an understanding of why people may be religious or something. It was a change of heart, really, and I didn't expect that at all. It started off as being like just silly and a silly idea.
Well, it came out, really dope actually, man. So
I appreciate it.
no problem, no problem. And the other one, Crosstown Beef. Now,
Mm-hmm.
between those two projects, like was the Biblical Distortions, was that all you, or was that kind of like a collab project versus the other Crosstown Beef?
Oh, they're both just me.
Okay, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool, cool. Yeah, what was the concept behind the Crosstown Beef album or beef
Uh,
tape?
I, I found that I was familiar with Al Green, and then I became familiar with Ann Peebles, and just in digging records, you just kind of start hearing things that are in common there, and it was like the organ sound, and I was just like, one day it clicked, like this is the same thing, and then I looked into it, and it was all produced by I'm forgetting his name right now, but he ran High Records, and I looked into it, and they were all a lot of them were the same session musicians, session players on the albums, all of the High Records, and then I was familiar with Stax Records before, and then I
Yeah.
found out they were like 4 blocks apart, and they made so many hits. So I think that High Records made 21, 29 number one hits in a row. that every time they went in. So it was like something in the water. And I just wanted to kind of battle the two together and make it came out to be like a boxing concept between the two. So
Okay.
that is like my all-time favorite music is the music that came from Memphis at that time. Really, it moves me, it touches me, especially Ann Peebles.
There's some soulful stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So kind of like with that being said, as a producer, who were some of your or who inspired you to get into music production and beat making?
Uh, I like, I like, I don't know, just music inspired me. I'm definitely a hip hop head, but I grew up on listening to different kinds of music. Like my parents listened to classic rock. My dad did. My mom listened to 90s pop, like Paul Abdul and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I just come from loving music. At that time, I can't say that I was trying to be like Premier or anything. Now I look up to Premier and Apollo Brown
yeah,
mostly, but I was just wanting to figure out. I couldn't really play piano or do anything with an actual instrument at that time. So I just wanted to make music. It was an outlet. It was a way to pass the time, really.
okay, yeah. I mean, um, similar, like, because it was around probably the mid to late '90s, when kind of like the sound that you have, for example. Uh, I used to listen to a lot of like Brand Nubian was one, of course Rakim, who else? Of course Nas. I listened to like basically a lot of like East Coast hip hop around that time,
Mm-hmm,
and I remember just like watching Rap City, for example,
mm-hmm,
and you
mm-hmm,
hear a lot of those vibes on Rap City. So, that's kind of the whole era of music that inspired me personally. And then, you see different things from there, just going through that whole like trap era and everything else just comes back around. It felt like
mm-hmm,
pretty much and it's kind of ironic, like, you talk about St. Cofa, but like I actually kind of met him through a couple of other producers and artists, but a lot of them that came on the show had a very similar sound. And I
mm-hmm.
say that only to say that, it did come back around as far as like boom bap, old school hip hop came back around and yeah, man, it's kinda cool to, see that going on here in 2022. Um
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
It always comes back around. I definitely listen to hip hop, all the like East Coast stuff. Love like all the Def Juk stuff. I would say that DJ High Tech.
yeah,
I would say
yeah,
that maybe the I didn't have a lot of producer influence at that time because I didn't study the producers. I was more about the rhymes, even though the production had something to do with it. But definitely High Tech, all the mood stuff that was coming out of Cincinnati, Talib Kweli. I love like the Reflection in Eternal blew my mind, just changed my thought process of how words could be used and expressing yourself and ideas.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Who are you listening to now?
Man, I listen to my homies and I listen to a lot of indie rock. I like Mayhem Loren. I listen to a lot of him, like Action Bronson. I like
Yeah,
funny MCs nowadays. Like people always want somebody to have a real message. Sometimes it's just entertainment, you know. I like to laugh and I like funny MCs, I think.
yeah, yeah. Shout out to Action Bronson, man. I've been seeing that
Mm-hmm,
cat everywhere lately. Everywhere.
mm-hmm,
Man. So yeah, as far as putting out like a lot of these instrumental projects that you have been, do you, as far as like staying consistent, do you have any type of like goal for, okay, I want to put out this many projects in a certain amount of time, or do you just kind of go with however like you're vibing? Like maybe you have this certain period of time where you're creative process, you're just thinking of new beats, or you're constantly working, and you decide, hey, I think I'm ready to put out another beat tape. Like, how do you kind of decide the difference or when you're ready?
You can come up with concepts before there's even any music for that made. It starts with a concept, just like the gospel project or the Memphis first Memphis record label process. I got a board over here, and it's just got album titles written on it. And lately, I've just been compiling a folder of finished beats that I kind of mastered to the same level so that they could all become any project that they would belong to. Uh, that's kind of what I do. As far as the label goes, I was trying to put out stuff every once a month. I was dropping it, but it seemed like that was too much. I'm a terrible businessman, and I hate to ask my customers to spend 10, 15 bucks every month. So I was like, maybe I'll just do it every other month, and then they don't feel so obligated. I'd hate for somebody to feel obligated to buy all my stuff. I don't know. It's not about the money. It's just about uh, putting out cool projects.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you put out like on just Bandcamp, or is your music on the other streaming platforms too?
Yeah, it's YouTube and streaming platforms, just like you do with your podcast, and as well as Bandcamp. It seems like Bandcamp is a great website. I really like it, and it enables people to pay. And uh, but I'm not against putting it on Spotify or anything. It's all over. It's all over everything.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's another topic. Like some of the past guests have came on and talk about that they have their music on Bandcamp, and it is a great place because artists and producers, creators can make a lot more than they can from some of the streaming platforms out there, like
Yeah.
Apple Music, or if you're going through DistroKid or something like that. But
Mhm.
not to say that putting your music on those sites is bad. You definitely want to be everywhere, but if people really
Mhm.
want to support the artists, Bandcamp is the place to go to support the artists because they're gonna make a little bit more money off each sale. So, and they can sell merch on there
Sure.
as well. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I
yeah,
love that ability. I love the ability to be able to, and it seems like a more direct interaction where you don't really interact with anybody through Bandcamp or through the streaming services, unless people are commenting on YouTube or something.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true.
Mhm.
Um, what kind of plans do you have for the remainder? It's actually what this month, November and December. So 2022 is almost up, but what kind of plans do you have for the remainder of this year going into next year?
I learned about this young. They're actually twin brothers that from the UK, and they're like 19-year-old. I don't know exactly how old they are, but I think they're like 19 or 20, and they make music like you and I make. You know what I mean? Where I feel like a lot of people that age do not, and they've worked so hard. And I've got a tape put out by them. They're called the Mindless Cartoons, and we got a tape together for that. That's going to drop on the 21st of this month, and then
Okay.
I don't know what's happening in December. I'd like to put something out in December. I got some ideas, and I got maybe something that I could put together. Uh, I really don't know. I'm just winging it as of now. I definitely would like to find more people to. I've got some homies, and we put out some of their stuff. But I'd like to meet even more people and just continuing to grow the family of Burnt Up Records
Yeah.
and put out whatever's good, whatever I feel is good for sure.
Sure, sure, man. Sometimes, it's like that, coming up with whatever you want to do next. I know like myself personally, I'm working on an album, as I said earlier, like at the beginning of the show, but like there are times when like beat tapes, for example, I put out my first beat tape this year that I put out probably in what 2.5 years or so. And those 2 years, so like during the pandemic, I kind of used that time to more so be an artist because I had a lot more time to like shoot videos and do all sorts of other things.
Mhm.
But now I kind of got back into doing more production. So yeah, I know how it is sometimes just coming up with those concepts and ideas and getting your next album together. Now, one thing we didn't talk about that you just touched on actually was Burn Up Records. Now, is it just you as a part of your kind of like your label, or do you have some other people on there with you?
It's ran by me, but I like to represent it as everybody that is included. Anybody that's ever submitted a track to a compilation, or I try to represent us all if I can, especially on social media. I try to use the word we when really it's just me, you know. But I definitely have friends that are local and stop by. My brother Benny, he comes by once a week, and we get down and then people all around the world that I communicate with. And but for the most part, it's just me sitting here dubbing tapes and communicating with people, mastering that projects that they need or whatever. I try to be able to handle whatever comes my way, but it is just me running it.
All
I'd like other people to be involved for sure in a face to face, but there's just not a lot of people around. I don't go out a lot. I just sit here and make music, so I don't really meet people other than on the internet. And unfortunately, or fortunately, they're not always within 10 minutes or an hour or something.
Yeah, same here. Like, it's kind of funny how that works. I work with more people that don't necessarily live in Dallas than I work
Mm-hmm.
with people that live in the city. And yeah, sometimes that's just the way it is, and you just gotta roll with it. I would love to work with more people locally, maybe eventually, yeah, but I just take it however it comes, man. That's all you can ask for sometimes. As long as you're making progress, that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Tell our listeners where can they find your music online? I know we just kind of went over that. And where can they find you at?
So I've got music personally. I put it out on Burnt Up Records, and then I we have like a crew ran by my dude Chef Michael and Common and Normal Records, and they're based out of Detroit. So I kind of the plan would be to split music, my own music, between Burnt Up Records and Common and Normal, and we all kind of pump each other up there a little bit. And you can find that on Bandcamp through Common and Normal or Burnt Up Records, and then Burnt Bakarak on all the streaming services. And Burnt Up Records has a page on YouTube as well.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Support Burt Bacharach, Burn Up
Mhm.
Records. Give my man a follow also on social media.
For
And
sure.
definitely appreciate you coming on and
Man, I
anytime.
appreciate
Oh,
yeah, I
go ahead.
appreciate you having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate Sankofa for tagging me in your posts. And yeah, I've been watching you put together these beats this month. You have a machine micro as well. Am I correct about that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I've been seeing you stay busy on it. It's tough to finish a beat every day, really. So big ups to you for that. And it's just tough to finish anything, really. But definitely something every day. It takes effort for sure.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man. It's some I actually done this the third year in a row, and this other YouTuber, his name is Tatro, and he's kind of leading this whole thing. He done it, these past couple of years, and I just like it because I like to not only challenge myself every day to be creative, because normally like this is the only time I do this, like in terms of making beats, like literally every day of the month. So
Right.
and all the other months, there are times when I may spend more time, working on the album opposed to making beats, and then there may be times when I spend more time recording podcast episodes because I had like last month, there was no way I probably could have did this challenge because I had a wave of like 5 or 6 interviews I did in a row. Some days I did even two, and yeah, it gets real busy sometimes. So. Um, it also allows me to just kind of maybe come out of my comfort zone in terms of I sample sometimes. Sometimes I just make stuff from scratch. So I just keep it going either way, and yeah, it just helped me stay creative, man. It really it's helped me improve over the last couple of years as a producer. So can't really say anything bad about it, man. I like it a lot.
What has helped you improve, are you saying?
Just doing this challenge every day, creating beats and yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
sometimes what I like to do and having like Machine and MPC, they you know how they go off of these expansions, and sometimes I may stack up on some of those, and I never touch them for a while, and then a challenge comes around like this where I get a chance to explore them and find new sounds and just gives me some fresh ideas to be able to create during the challenge and everything else that I have. Sometimes I just operate with hardware. I got a couple of hardware synthesizers in here as well that sometimes I like to use. So I
Mhm.
pretty much have all of that in my bag, man. And yeah.
What hardware synthesizers have you been messing with?
I got the Arturia Micro Freak, and then I have two. I have the Uno drum synth from IK Multimedia, and then I also have the Uno synth from
Hmm.
them as well. And then the MPK Mini Play with that has the internal sounds. Sometimes I wire all three of those to the MPC and
Hmm.
just kind of cook up that way when I just want to work with hardware. And it just sometimes it's just different, I guess a different workflow that helps me create when I use just hardware,
Hmm.
opposed to just sitting in front of the computer and creating that way. So I like the ideas how they come out whenever I work with hardware.
I've been trying to mess with synths myself. I always find it hard to I love samples, but I find it hard to mix the samples and actual instruments. Sometimes the records aren't necessarily tuned to 440, so I find it hard, and my ear's not real good. And sometimes I can get the tuner. I can just use a little chord tuner for guitars, and sometimes it'll register the multi-timbral instruments or kind of give you if it's flat, so I can use that. And then once I get that to like a sample to 440, then I can really hear the notes and get everything flowing a little bit better. I find it hard to mix the two. That's a challenge I've been stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to do. So big
Yeah.
ups to you for do you mix the two or are you always sample or always your own instrumentation?
Um, Sometimes I'll mix the two. I got a beat. I haven't put the video out yet, but it's probably gonna be sometime next week that I'm doing for this challenge. I'm editing the video as we speak. But I
Mm-hmm.
chopped up a piano sample, and at the end of the beat, the last instrument I add is a synth sound. Um, so that may be a time like that when I mix up the two. I don't add too much to it when I'm sampling. Maybe sometimes I'll add some bass as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of as far as I go when I mix the two.
Are you playing a live bass when you say bass, or are you using the synth bass, or like one of the softwares on the MPC One, something like that, or what are you
Uh,
using for bass?
Either the synth bass or like the internal bass on the MPC.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wish I could play bass guitar. That's one of the things I'd like to do at some point, though.
You should, man. I'm super dumb with it, but I feel like learning to play a little bit of bass and just about chord structures and root notes and everything, it really stepped my game up. I can show you what I did pre trying to learn the bass and post trying to learn the bass, and in my opinion, they're night and day to me. But I feel like the bass isn't that hard to at least learn.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
lot
know,
of
and I
people,
find it very fun. Go
a
ahead.
lot of people say that, man. So yeah, I'm something definitely on my list. I came up playing the trumpet, and I still play every once in a while, but
Nice, nice.
um, yeah, eventually I want to learn like keys. I want to learn how to play the bass.
Hmm.
I can't like even though I make beats, I can't really play like fluently.
Hmm.
I kind of
Hmm.
play based off of what I hear, and I know
Hmm.
music theory as well, a little bit of music theory, but I really want to learn how to play the keys a lot better than I've been able to play. So yeah, definitely bass and keys will be in my future.
Feel like if you can play the keyboard, it goes. If you learn that, you can do anything, right? Because it's all there in front of you versus being, and you can go from the lowest register to the highest register. And I feel like it all goes across the spectrum. Like you can figure out chords on a piano, you'd be able to figure out chords on a guitar. Or I came up playing the trumpet as well. I only played for a couple years, but all the stuff I learned even back then, I want to say from like fifth to eighth grade, it really stuck with me, and I carried that over. And I'd love to pick up another trumpet. Unfortunately, I don't have my original one, but I love the trumpet. I love all the trumpet, and like especially in that the stacks record stuff. It's real sweet. I love the sound of trumpets.
Yeah, man, definitely give it a shot, man. Give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
This has been another edition of the Major Music Lounge, joined by my man Burnt Bakarak from Burnt Up Records and myself,
Mm-hmm.
your boy D Dot. Catch these episodes on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms. Thank you for tuning in, and we're out.
You can tell by my demeanor, smooth, calm, and collect. You don't see nobody cleaner, paper, power, and respect. Seen, read, and heard, sit back and peep the scene. In my hustle of the chart, moving at a different speed.